The heavy steel door of the Gangnam penthouse slammed shut behind Kang Tae-woo at 2 in the morning. His tailored black suit still carried the metallic scent of rain and gunpowder from the dockside, deal that had left 2 men dead and his empire one step stronger. He was the undisputed Korean Mafia Boss, the Shadow King of Seoul, whose name made hardened criminals flinch, yet tonight all he wanted was the scalding water of his private shower to erase the night's violence. He kicked off his shoes, crossed the marble foyer, and pushed open the bathroom door. Steam rolled out like fog from the Han River. And there she stood under the rainfall showerhead, a tall black woman, eyes squeezed shut, humming a soft, unfamiliar melody, water tracing every curve of her dark skin. Her clothes lay folded neatly on the counter. She had no idea the owner had returned. Tae-woo's hand flew to the holster under his jacket, but the gun was already on the kitchen island. He froze, voice low and lethal. "Who the hell are you, and how did you get into my house?" The woman's eyes snapped open, terror flashing across her face. She grabbed the nearest towel, wrapping it around herself so fast she nearly slipped a please. "I'm sorry, I didn't know anyone lived here. I was running for my life. I saw the open balcony door, and the place looked empty. I just needed 5 minutes to wash off the blood and the fear. My name is Aisha Johnson. I'm from Chicago. I swear I'm not a thief. I'll leave right now. Just don't call the police, Tae-woo." Stepped closer, water dripping from her braided hair onto the floor. His heart hammered, not from fear, but from the sheer impossibility of this moment in his fortress of solitude. A stranger had invaded the one place he let his guard down. Aisha backed against the cold tiled wall, heart pounding louder than the shower still running behind her. She had arrived in Seoul 3 weeks ago on a medical volunteer visa, working night shifts at a free clinic for immigrant families. That evening, a gang of street thugs had cornered her in an alley. Mistaking her for someone who owed money, she fought back, grabbed a broken bottle, and ran blind through the glittering streets until she spotted the half-open balcony of this luxury tower. She climbed the fire, escaped desperate for a safe place to clean up, and breathed. Tae-woo's eyes narrowed, scanning and scanning. Her face for lies, but all he saw was raw exhaustion and honesty. "You broke into the wrong man's home, lady. Do you have any idea who I am?" He growled, voice like gravel. Aisha shook her head, braids swinging. "I don't care who you are. I've seen enough monsters tonight to last a lifetime. I just wanted to feel human again, please. I have nowhere else to go. My passport, my money, everything is back at the hostel. They burned it. I'll pay you back somehow. I'm a nurse. I can stitch wounds. I can help if you're hurt." The words hung between them, unexpected kindness from a woman who should have been begging for it. Her life. Tae-woo's finger hovered near the panic button that would summon 10 armed men, but something in her steady gaze, the way she stood tall, despite the towel, and the terror made him pause for the first time in years. The Mafia Boss felt the ground shift beneath him. A soft shuffle of bare feet echoed from the hallway. Little Hai-jin, Tae-woo's 7-year-old daughter, appeared in the bathroom doorway, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, eyes still heavy with sleep. She had woken from another nightmare about the mother she lost 2 years ago in arrival families. The girl rarely spoke anymore. Doctors called it selective mutism born from trauma. Yet tonight her small voice cut through the steam like a whisper from another world. She looked straight at Aisha, then tugged her father's sleeve and said the words, "No one expected a daddy. She's the one-y." Tae-woo's blood ran cold. Hai-jin had drawn pictures for months of a tall, dark-skinned woman with kind eyes, calling her the one who stays egg. He had dismissed them as a child's fantasy. But hearing the words aloud in this impossible moment made his chest tighten. Aisha knelt slowly, towel secured, eyes level with the little girl. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm Aisha. Are you okay?" Hai-jin nodded once and stepped closer, resting her head against Aisha's arm, as if she had known her forever. Tae-woo stood frozen, gun forgotten, the most feared man in Seoul, watching his silent daughter speak for the first time in months to the stranger he had almost thrown out into the night. Tae-woo's mind raced through every ruthless lesson his father had taught him: never show weakness, never trust outsiders. Yet here was Hai-jin clinging to this American woman like a lifeline. He could have ended it with one call. Instead, he turned off the shower, grabbed a thick robe from the hook, tossed it to Aisha. "Put this on. You're not leaving tonight. Not with my daughter looking at you like that." Aisha slipped the robe on its sleeves, swallowing her hands. She stood taller, now, voice soft, thank you. I won't cause trouble. I promise I can sleep on the couch or even the floor I've slept in. Worse places, Hai-Jin tugged Aisha's hand, leading her toward the living room where the city lights sparkled like stars. Ti-Woo followed, silently pouring himself a whiskey, watching the two of them, the child who had not smiled in years now, giggling quietly as Aisha braided a small section of her hair. With gentle fingers, he had built an empire on fear and blood, but this single act of unexpected humanity cracked something deep inside the armor he wore every day. Hours later, in the quiet of the penthouse, Ti-Woo sat in his study replaying the night he had become the boss. After his wife's death, he had buried his heart under layers of steel and deals that left bodies in the river. Hai-Jin had been his only light yet. Even she had grown distant until tonight. Aisha sat cross-legged on the floor, helping Hai-Jin color a picture of a rainbow. The little girl's whispers grew bolder. "You have the same smile as in my dreams." Aisha laughed softly. Dreams are funny like that. I came to Korea to help kids who don't have enough. I fix broken bones and broken hearts. Maybe tonight I fixed a little piece of yours. Ti-Woo listened from the shadows, the woman's selflessness shining brighter than any diamond he had ever stolen. He had walked in expecting violence. Instead, he found a mirror reflecting the kindness he thought he had lost forever. Dawn crept over the Seoul skyline, painting the penthouse in soft gold. Aisha made breakfast with whatever she found in the fridge, simple eggs and rice seasoned with American spices. She learned from her grandmother back in Chicago. Hai-Jin ate with gusto for the first time in months, chatting about favorite cartoons. Ti-Woo watched from the doorway. Arms crossed the Mafia Boss who commanded armies, now reduced to silence by a single motherly gesture from a stranger. Aisha noticed his stare and offered him a plate. "Even kings need to eat you. Look like you haven't slept in days." He took the plate, their fingers brushing for a split second, an electric current of something neither expected. She told him more about her life, the clinic, the children she saved, the way she left everything behind because helping others felt like the only thing that made sense in a cruel world. Ti-Woo felt the walls he built begin to crumble, one kind word at a time. The first unexpected twist came that afternoon when Hai-Jin suddenly clutched her chest, struggling to breathe. The rare heart condition she had hidden from everyone flared up. Doctors had warned it could happen without warning. Ti-Woo panicked, dialing his private physician, but Aisha moved faster. She checked the girl's pulse, laid her on the couch, and used techniques she had perfected in Chicago emergency rooms. "Stay with me, sweetheart. Breathe slow, just like we practiced with the rainbow." Her voice calm and steady. Hai-Jin's color returned slowly. The crisis passing. Aisha had recognized symptoms instantly because she had treated dozens of similar cases in underfunded clinics. Ti-Woo dropped to his knees beside them, the ruthless boss reduced to a terrified father, realizing the woman he had almost thrown out held the knowledge that could save his only child. That night, as Hai-Jin slept peacefully between them on the oversized couch, Aisha shared stories of her own childhood, growing up in a tough neighborhood where kindness was the only currency that mattered. She had lost her brother to street violence, yet chose to heal instead of hate. Ti-Woo listened for the first time in years, opening up about the wife he couldn't protect, the empire he built to keep Hai-Jin safe, the loneliness that came with power. Aisha placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. A power means nothing if you have no one to share it with. Sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is let it. Someone in their eyes met across the sleeping child, and for a moment the Mafia Boss felt seen not as a monster, but as a man carrying the weight of the world. The true emotional climax arrived 2 nights later when rival enforcers tracked Aisha to the penthouse, bursting through the balcony, door guns drawn. They had come for the woman who had humiliated their crew in the alley. Ti-Woo reached for his weapon, but Aisha acted first, shoving Hai-Jin behind a heavy armchair and standing tall. "Take me if you want, but the child stays safe," she said, voice steady even as bullets splintered the wall beside her. In that instant, she became the shield, the selfless protector, willing to die for a little girl she had known only days. Ti-Woo fought like a man, possessed, dropping 3 attackers while Aisha dragged Hai-Jin to safety, blood from a graze on her arm staining the white robe. Yet she never stopped, whispering comforting words to the frightened child. The act of raw compassion in the middle of chaos shattered the last of Ti-Woo's defenses. Clearly now the woman his daughter had whispered about was the one who brought light into their darkness, the one who reminded him what it meant to be human. In the sudden silence after the last rival fell, Tiwoo dropped his gun and crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling both Aisha and Hai-Jin into his arms. The Mafia Boss, who had walked in on a stranger in his shower, now held the 2 people who had changed everything forever. Hai-Jin looked up at her father and whispered one more time, "Fo one daddy." "She really is," the guy Aisha smiled through tears, pressing a kiss to the little girl's forehead, her kindness the only thing that mattered in that blood-stained living room, as the city lights continued to sparkle outside like a promise of something new. The city of Seoul never truly slept, its neon heartbeat pulsing through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Gangnam penthouse, even as the first hints of morning light began to filter across the blood-stained marble floors. Kang Tiwoo stood motionless in the center of the chaos, tailored black shirt torn at the shoulder from the graze of a rival's bullet, chest heaving with the kind of raw exhaustion that came not from physical exertion, but from the overwhelming realization that his entire world had shifted in the span of a single night. Around him lay the bodies of the 3 enforcers who had dared breach his sanctuary, their weapons scattered like forgotten toys, blood pooling slowly in the intricate patterns of the imported Italian tile. Yet none of that violence held his attention, not anymore. His eyes were locked on Aisha Johnson, the tall black woman from Chicago who had appeared like a ghost in his shower less than 48 hours earlier. Now kneeling on the floor with his 7-year-old daughter Hai-Jin cradled protectively in her arms. Aisha's dark skin glistened with a mix of sweat and the faint smear of her own blood from a shallow cut along her forearm where a stray bullet had kissed her flesh, but her expression remained calm, almost serene, as she whispered soothing words into the little girl's ear. "It's okay, baby girl. Breathe with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Just like we practiced with the rainbow drawing yesterday. You're so brave, Hai-Jin, so very brave." Hai-Jin's small hands clutched the front of the oversized white robe Aisha still wore, the same robe Tiwoo had tossed to her in those first tense moments after discovering her naked and vulnerable under his rainfall showerhead. The child's breathing gradually slowed, the panic from the sudden attack ebbing away as Aisha's steady voice worked its quiet magic, the same selfless kindness that had first disarmed the Mafia Boss when he had stormed into his own bathroom expecting solitude and instead found a stranger humming. Melody that sounded like home. Tiwoo felt something crack deep inside his chest, a fracture in the iron walls he had spent years forging through bloodshed and betrayal. He, Kang Tiwoo, the undisputed Korean Mafia boss whose name alone could empty entire rooms in the underworld of Seoul, whose orders had ended lives without hesitation, whose empire stretched from the shadowy docks of Incheon to the glittering high-rises of Gangnam, now found himself utterly powerless in the face of this woman's quiet strength. He had walked into his penthouse that rainy night intending nothing more than a hot shower to wash away the stench of a deal gone bloody. A deal that had left 2 rival lieutenants floating in the Han River. Instead, he had stumbled upon Aisha, her braided hair slick with water, her dark eyes wide with terror yet unflinching in their honesty, when she explained how desperation had driven her to climb his balcony fire escape after a brutal encounter with street thugs. He should have ended her right there. One phone call to his men, and she would have disappeared into the night like so many others who had crossed his path. But then Hai-Jin had appeared, the silent child who had not spoken more than a handful of words since her mother's death in a rival ambush 2 years prior, and in a voice as soft as a whisper from another world, the little girl had said, "Daddy, she's the one." Those 4 words had frozen Tiwoo in place, unraveling years of carefully constructed emotional armor. Now, standing amid the aftermath of another violent intrusion, he understood with painful clarity why his daughter had recognized Aisha immediately. She was the light he had long since abandoned, the kindness he had convinced himself no longer existed in his brutal world. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, his custom leather shoes leaving bloody footprints on the floor, and dropped to his knees beside them. His large hands, calloused from years of handling guns and sealing deals with violence, trembled slightly as he reached out to touch Hai-Jin's hair, then Ashia's uninjured arm. "Are you hurt badly?" he asked, his voice rough and low, stripped of the lethal authority it usually carried. Aisha looked up at him, her full lips curving into a small, reassuring smile, despite the pain that must have been throbbing through her arm. It's just a scratch, Mr. Kang. I've seen worse in the clinics back home. Kids with gunshot wounds from drive-bys, mothers bleeding out from domestic fights. This is nothing. Ha 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 ha. She gently shifted Hai-Jin so the child could see her father, the little girl's eyes still wide but no longer filled with the blank terror that had haunted them for so long. Hai-Jin reached out a tiny hand and placed it on Ti-Woo's cheek, a gesture so innocent and trusting that it nearly broke him. Appa, Aisha Nuna saved me. She pushed me behind the chair. She said she would take the bad men if they wanted her. She's the one, Appa. The one from my dreams. The words, spoken with such simple conviction, hung in the air like a benediction. Ti-Woo swallowed hard, the lump in his throat making it difficult to breathe. In all his years leading the organization, facing down assassinations and betrayals, he had never felt this exposed, this raw. "Why are you like this?" he asked, the question escaping before he could stop it. "After everything tonight, after I almost threw you out that first night. Why help us?" Aisha stood up, the robe now stained and torn, but somehow still graceful on her tall frame. She met his gaze directly, her dark brown eyes reflecting the soft light from the vanity. Because kindness isn't something you earn, Mr. Kang. It's something you give, especially when it's hardest. I saw a scared little girl who needed someone. I saw a man carrying the weight of the world who maybe needed reminding that he doesn't have to carry it alone. Humanity, it's messy and complicated, but at its core, it's about choosing compassion over cruelty, even when the world tells you to do the opposite. They moved to the living room then, the cleanup crew already discreetly removing the evidence of the attack with the silent efficiency that came from years of serving the Kang family. Ti-Woo poured 2 glasses of water instead of his usual whiskey, handing one to Aisha as they sat on the wide sectional couch overlooking the awakening city. The conversation flowed more freely now, the barriers between them thinning with every shared word. Aisha spoke of the children she had treated in Seoul's hidden immigrant communities, the families fleeing poverty or persecution who arrived with nothing but hope and the clothes on their backs. She described stitching wounds without proper supplies, holding hands through fevers, singing lullabies in broken Korean to calm frightened toddlers. Her selflessness shone through every anecdote, not as something performative but as a natural extension of who she was. Ti-Woo found himself opening up in return, sharing fragments of his life he had never voiced aloud. The pressure of inheriting the family organization at a young age, the rivals who had murdered his wife in a calculated strike meant to break him. The nights he sat alone in this very penthouse, wondering if the empire was worth the emptiness it brought. "I thought power would protect us," he admitted quietly, staring out at the skyline. "But it only isolated us more, until you walked, until you appeared in that shower." As the morning sun climbed higher, casting golden rays across the room, Hai-Jin woke and padded out to join them, climbing into Aisha's lap without hesitation. The 3 of them shared a simple breakfast that Aisha prepared with ingredients from the well-stocked kitchen, eggs scrambled with American spices she had somehow coaxed from the pantry, rice cooked perfectly, and fresh fruit sliced with care. Hai-Jin ate with genuine appetite, chattering softly about her dreams and her favorite cartoons, her selective mutism giving way more and more to the warmth of Aisha's presence. Ti-Woo watched them, the scene so domestic and foreign to his violent existence that it felt like stepping into another life. For the first time in years, the Mafia Boss allowed himself to imagine something different, a path where kindness wasn't a weakness but a foundation, where his daughter could grow up surrounded by light instead of shadows. The day unfolded with unexpected tenderness. Ti-Woo canceled all his meetings, something unheard of for a man whose schedule dictated the flow of millions in illicit goods and influence. Instead, he accompanied Aisha and Hai-Jin to a quiet park near the penthouse, the kind of place he had avoided for fear of vulnerability. Bodyguards kept a discreet distance, but for once, Ti-Woo felt no need for the constant vigilance that had defined his days. Aisha pushed Hai-Jin on the swings, her laughter ringing out like music, while Ti-Woo sat on a nearby bench, observing the way the woman's tall, graceful figure moved with effortless compassion. Children from nearby families noticed Aisha's warm smile and braided hair, some approaching shyly to ask questions about her skin or her accent. She answered each one with patience and humor, turning potential awkwardness into moments of connection. "We're all different on the outside," she told a curious little boy, "but inside we all want the same things. To be safe, to be loved, to have someone who sees us." Hai-Jin beamed with pride, holding Aisha's hand tightly as they walked the winding paths lined with cherry blossoms that had begun to bloom early that spring. Back at the penthouse that evening, another layer of the story revealed itself when Asha received a call from the free clinic where she had been volunteering. One of the young patients she had been treating, a Syrian refugee boy with a complicated infection, had taken a turn for the worse. The clinic lacked the specialized antibiotics needed, and without immediate intervention, the child risked losing a limb or worse. Aisha's face tightened with concern as she explained the situation to Ti-Woo. "I have to go. He's just 8 years old and his mother has no one else." The Mafia Boss, who controlled networks capable of moving anything across borders, saw an opportunity to repay the kindness she had shown. Within an hour, his discreet contacts had secured the medication from a private pharmaceutical source delivered directly to the clinic by one of his most reliable men. Asha's eyes widened in surprise when he told her, but she accepted the help with graceful gratitude. "A thank you. Not for the power of the money, but for choosing to use it for something good tonight." They went together to the clinic under the cover of night, Ti-Woo waiting in the car while Aisha worked her magic inside, her expertise and gentle bedside manner bringing relief to the frightened family. When she returned, her face tired but radiant, she simply said, "He's going to be okay," because someone cared enough to help. Nights turned into days, and the bond between the three of them deepened in ways Ti-Woo could never have anticipated. Hai-Jin began speaking more openly, sharing stories of her mother and her fears, finding in Aisha a bridge to the emotions she had locked away. Aisha taught her simple American songs and games, while Hai-Jin showed her how to fold origami cranes, their laughter filling the penthouse with a warmth that chased away the lingering ghosts of violence. Ti-Woo found himself drawn into their world, participating in evening story times where Asha read from books she had borrowed from a local library, her voice rich and expressive as she brought characters to life. He even attempted to cook one night, a disastrous but hilarious effort at kimchi fried rice that ended with all three of them dissolving into giggles over the overly spicy mess. In these moments, the ruthless Mafia Boss glimpsed a version of himself he had long forgotten, a man capable of laughter, of tenderness, of simply being present without the weight of his empire pressing down. Yet the outside world did not remain silent for long. Whispers began circulating in the underworld about the American woman living under Kang Ti-Woo's protection. The stranger who had survived an attack meant to send a message. Rivals saw it as weakness, an opening to challenge his authority. One evening, as the three of them watched the sunset from the balcony where Aisha had first entered, an encrypted message arrived on Ti-Woo's secure phone. A rival faction was planning a larger assault, targeting not just him, but anyone close to him. The threat was clear: eliminate the distraction, the woman who was softening the steel of the Kang Empire. Ti-Woo stared at the screen, his jaw tightening, the familiar cold resolve returning. But this time, it was tempered by something new. He looked at Aisha and Hai-Jin, the woman braiding the child's hair while humming that same soft melody from the shower, and made a decision that would alter the course of his life forever. Instead of responding with immediate retaliation, he turned to Aisha and spoke honestly. "There is danger coming because of me, because of us. I can send you away, keep you safe far from here." Or, he paused, the words heavy with implication. Aisha met his gaze, her expression steady and unafraid. "Or I can stay and help you find another way, a way that doesn't end in more blood." Because kindness can be a weapon too, Mr. Kang. The strongest kind. The following weeks tested that belief in profound ways. Ti-Woo began making subtle shifts within his organization, redirecting resources toward legitimate businesses and quietly dismantling some of the more violent operations that had defined his rise. It was risky, inviting challenges from those who thrived on the old ways, but with Aki's quiet counsel and Hai-Jin's innocent encouragement, he found the courage to try. Aisha continued her volunteer work, now with better supplies thanks to discreet support from Ti-Woo's network, transforming the clinic into a beacon of hope for many. She treated not only physical ailments, but also offered listening ears and encouraging words to the weary parents and frightened children who walked through its doors. Her selflessness inspired those around her, including several of Tiwoo's own men who began questioning their paths after witnessing her unwavering humanity. One particularly poignant afternoon, Hae-jin experienced another episode with her heart condition, the rare defect flaring up during a playful moment in the penthouse. Panic threatened to overwhelm Tiwoo once more, memories of loss flooding back, but Aisha remained composed, using her nursing skills to stabilize the child while calmly directing Tiwoo to call for medical help. As they waited for the private doctor to arrive, Aisha held Hae-jin's hand and shared a story from her own life about the time she had sat by her brother's bedside after he was injured in a fight, promising him she would always choose healing over hate. "Your heart is strong, Hae-jin," she whispered, "not because it never gets hurt, but because it keeps beating even when it does. And we're here with you, all of us." The episode passed, and in the relief that followed, Tiwoo pulled Aisha aside, his voice thick with emotion. "You keep saving us. Every day. I don't know how to repay that." Aisha simply smiled, placing her hand over his. "You don't repay kindness with debt, you pass it on. That's how it grows." As seasons changed and cherry blossoms gave way to summer greenery, the unexpected twist continued to unfold. A rival boss, intrigued by the rumors of Tiwoo's changing ways, reached out not for war but for a tentative dialogue, influenced indirectly by stories of the compassionate woman in his household. Negotiations replaced bullets in certain dealings, saving lives on both sides. Hae-jin thrived under Aisha's care, health stabilizing with consistent medical attention and the emotional security of a growing family bond. Aisha herself found a sense of belonging she had not expected, her initial desperate intrusion evolving into a chosen home where her skills and heart were valued beyond measure. Through it all, the central thread remained the profound impact of Aisha's compassion. In a world that had taught Tiwoo that power was everything, she demonstrated that true strength lay in vulnerability, in choosing to see the humanity in others, even when they had forgotten their own. The Mafia Boss, who had once ruled through fear, now found himself leading with a different kind of authority, one infused with the lessons of selflessness and kindness she embodied every day. Hae-jin continued to whisper affirmations of "she's the one," but now Tiwoo understood it not as a child's fancy but as a profound truth. Like Xia had walked into their lives through an open balcony in a steaming shower, and in doing so, she had opened doors to possibilities none of them had dared to dream. The days blended into a rhythm of quiet joys and shared challenges. Mornings often began with Aisha preparing breakfast while Tiwoo read reports, occasionally glancing up to watch her move with that graceful confidence. Afternoons might involve outings to cultural sites where Aisha learned about Korean history and shared pieces of African American heritage, fostering a beautiful cultural exchange that enriched all their lives. Evenings were for reflection, conversations that delved deeper into dreams and fears, building a foundation of trust that felt unbreakable. One night, as rain pattered against the windows reminiscent of the night they met, Aisha turned to Tiwoo and said, "I never imagined my escape would lead to this, to feeling like I belong somewhere after so much wandering." He replied softly, "And I never imagined a stranger in my shower would remind me what it means to truly live." Their story continued to evolve, marked by moments of realization that reinforced the power of humanity. When a young member of Tiwoo's organization was injured in a minor skirmish, Aisha insisted on treating him personally, her care extending beyond the physical to offering guidance on choosing a different path. The young man, moved by her words, later chose to step away from the more dangerous aspects of the life, citing her kindness as the catalyst. Similarly, when Hae-jin struggled with nightmares, Aisha created a special ritual of drawing bravery maps together, turning fear into creative expression and strengthening the child's resilience. Tiwoo marveled at these transformations, recognizing that the act of compassion Aisha had shown from the very beginning had rippled outward, touching lives far beyond the penthouse walls. He began to question the legacy he wanted to leave. Not one of fear and domination, but one where his daughter could grow up proud of her father's choices. The emotional weight of this realization culminated in a private moment when he confessed to Aisha his deepest regrets and hopes. "I was lost before you came, buried under the weight of what I thought I had to be. Your kindness, it showed me another way." She listened with the same open heart that had first welcomed Hai-Jin, responding, "We're all a little lost sometimes." The beauty is in finding each other and walking together. As the narrative of their lives wove onward, the positive impact of that initial encounter in the shower continued to manifest in countless small and large ways. The clinic flourished with additional support, becoming a model for community care. Hai-Jin started school with newfound confidence, her teachers noting her bright spirit and kindness toward classmates. Tiwoo navigated the complexities of his world with a balanced approach, using his influence to broker peace in certain territories and protect the vulnerable. Through it all, Aisha remained the steady presence, her selflessness a guiding light that inspired those around her to be better versions of themselves. The story of the Korean Mafia boss and the black woman who appeared in his shower was far from over. But its foundation was built on the enduring power of humanity, kindness, and the unexpected ways lives could intertwine to create something beautiful and lasting. In the heart of Seoul, amid the contrasts of shadow and light, three souls had found each other, proving that even in the most unlikely circumstances, compassion could rewrite destinies and heal what violence had broken. And in the quiet moments when Hai-Jin would look at Aisha with those trusting eyes and whisper once more, "She's the one," both Tiwoo and Aisha knew in their hearts that the words held a truth that transcended words, a truth born from the simple, profound choice to be kind in a world that often forgot how.